As Iando sat there gazing upon this shadowy figure, with eyes burning with a reddish flare, similar to the markings on the marker, the shadow would tell him of the resources required to build a device to help him in his plight. With it, the humans could broaden the dormancy field outward, spanning across the planet to defeat the Necromorph infestation, rendering them immobilized. The apparition would then wave its appendage. As it did, the resources appeared in front of Iando, glowing, shining white, contrast to the shadow staring him down. He would reach out towards it, only for them to fade away along with the apparition. Thinking on what needed to be done, he would take to the new marker chambers, where a group of scientists were gathering within their work. Within the warehouse, the Daleks were also gathering, preparing a formation to go out into the station, ready to exterminate all humans.
Your orders are to take up positions within the settlement, ready to exterminate all life that is not Dalek. Destroy the humans. Exterminate all life. Annihilate. Kill the humans. What of the agents? They have served their purpose. They, like the others, must be eliminated. Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
The Daleks begin to leave the warehouse, pouring out of the main doors, all bloodthirsty to exterminate everything in the research station. Within the dark corners of the station, however, unknown to the Daleks, another enemy was increasing its numbers, killing the occupants to recombinate them to their side. The humans were indeed the middlemen in this scenario, even with most of the scientists either killed, transformed, or otherwise turned into the new race of Daleks. The station was still full of workers within the western sector. Iando, being the last man with an actual authority, had successfully made it to his destination, despite the constant thunderous noises coming in from the ventilation system, indicating that the Necromorphs were indeed on the move, and their numbers were spreading, along with dripping coming in from the vents, which looked to be a mix of blood and mucus. Iando would talk to the scientists inside of the marker's new chambers. One of the scientists, Ian, would ask Iando if he knew anything of the disturbances they had been hearing outside. He would tell them that there is a new threat inside of the station, which looked to be a living corpse reconstructed to assume a new deadly purpose. A researcher would claim it to be the work of that organism Hogan and Clifton were working on. Iando would ask why they thought that, and they would say, well, because they discovered it reconstructs DNA after it absorbs the desired vector, that being the flesh of the deceased. Iando would place his hand on his head wiping the sweat from his brow as he says, Of course it does. This isn't how it was supposed to go. What do you mean, sir? The researcher would ask. The mission wasn't supposed to be like this. Who could have seen this coming? Iando responds to the question, when suddenly they are startled by screams coming from outside, along with shouts of extermination. What's that? A researcher would ask, with Iando claiming that those screams must be more unfortunate victims of necromorphs he heard clawing through the vents. A researcher would add, Do these necromorphs speak? Asking if the faint shouts of extermination could be these horrifying creatures. Not that I know of. The one that came after me didn't say anything, just a regurgitated roar of some kind. The researchers would ask then, what is the faint exterminations? I don't know. You, over there, at the door, put this room on lockdown for now. We can't risk those things getting in here. Iando would then walk over to the observation room to check the cameras to see the Daleks teeming through this area of the station. He would then see men walking through the corridors, and he would watch in horror as they cut them down without even a second thought.
Exterminate! Kill them! Annihilate them!
Corpses all over the station would soon fill the decks, leaving only a trail of dead bodies in the Daleks' wake, until a lone Dalek would spot something off in the distance, prompting it to move in for the kill.
Exterminate! Identify yourself!
The Dalek would spot a slasher form, slowly beginning to rise, spreading its newly formed appendages that appeared to be a mixture of tissues, muscle, skin, and bones, forming out of the palms, creating sharp scythe blades. This jawless abomination would then look towards the Dalek's eye, taking its first steps towards it with a twitch, as if getting a feel for it.
Keep your distance! I said keep your distance!
The Necromorph continued its approach until the Dalek opened fire upon it, terrified at the sheer sight of the monster standing before it, as the reason Daleks exterminated anything different from them is because they have a fear, a dislike for the unlike. So these recombinated nightmares would be another different species to them, a variation of humans. However, the Necromorph would take a step back as the paralyzing attack ensued. This would cause it to stand still for a moment, as if getting its bearings, then proceeded to roar back at the Dalek, with more and more Necromorphs beginning to break through the ventilation system surrounding the Dalek, with an exploder form creeping up from behind.
Stay back, keep away, exterminate, under attack, unknown humanoid hostiles are attacking, requesting assistance.
The exploder form may have destroyed the casing of the Dalek shell, however, it may in fact have done it a favor, as the explosion of the goo-like sack had knocked back the other Necromorphs, rendering them as lumps of meat, only useful now as biomass to fill the corridors. Iando would ask, So, do we have the components and resources capable of building a pedestal for the marker? The researchers would look to each other and all around the room before one says, "I'm afraid not, sir. We have the means to print the device out with this, but we do not possess the necessary materials and other resources." Iando would state that they will need to gather them. When another researcher states that that is suicide, they wouldn't even make it, and that Iando saw those things out there and what those machines are doing. When Iando asks, "Do we have much of a choice?" the researchers would look to each other once again, reluctant to answer Iando. Iando would then say, "That's what I thought. Where would the resources be?" Another researcher would say, "Hey, come have a look at this. Those machines, they aren't just killing our own, they're fighting those monsters too. You could get the resources, then make it back undetected if you're quick." Iando, seeing the opportunity, would bring up a map schematic of the station, adding in a filter to detect any abnormalities inside of the station, when it would pick up several spikes of radiation, believing those to be the machines he saw. He would then copy the map and the settings to give to another researcher so that they may move around the station undetected, giving them the edge to avoid these deadly machines. Iando would soon be given the information required to find the resources, with a researcher stating, "Resources are normally sent down to the western sector." Iando would look at the map, locating the spikes of radiation. "See? They haven't even made it to that sector. We still have a chance." The other researcher would ask about what they will do to survive against the machines after activating this pedestal, with Iando stating that he does not know, but they will cross that bridge when they come to it. Iando would move through the corridors, and so too would another researcher, being careful not to attract too much attention, while keeping an eye on their map holograms.
Exterminate the abominations! Annihilate! Destroy!
Iando would be getting closer to the western sector, crawling as so not to be caught off guard, as he made a guess of how the Daleks can see him. The eye stalk. He would poke his head around the corner to see a Dalek coming straight towards his location.
Seek, locate, exterminate. Seek, locate, annihilate. Seek, locate, destroy.
Iando would watch the Dalek, hoping it would not look down to him and would continue gliding across the corridor. The Dalek continues moving, giving Iando a chance to scurry away towards the bulkhead door that separates engineering from the central part of the station.
Exterminate! Exterminate! Exterminate!
The Daleks continue to fight against the Necromorph Scourge, with only the one casualty. However, a slasher would go straight for the dome and disconnect the Dalek eye stalk, severing its ability to see.
My vision is impaired. I cannot see. My vision is impaired. I cannot see. Help me. Vision impaired. Help me. Help. Help.
The Dalek, hearing the Necromorphs nearby, would attempt to continue the extermination, only for the Necromorph to dart out of the way and the fire would hit another Dalek.
Exterminate! firing, or you shall be destroyed. Help me, help me, help, help, help.
With more and more necromorphs continuing to pour out towards them, it seemed as if their numbers were infinite, stretching the corridor conflict for an hour or so, when the last necromorph would fall to the paralyzing attacks.
Corrupted humanoid abominations have been exterminated. Daleks are supreme. Nothing can defeat the Daleks.
Iando would make it to the eastern sector. However, there was a problem. The necromorphs had beaten him to it, with the infectors descending down from the ceiling of this hangar-like room. It would take them some time to claw their way to his level, but when looking at the map once more, he would see that the Daleks were closing in on his location when he would run back to the door to lock it from his side, barring their passage. But then he would see that the Daleks are not so easily defeated by a locked door when they would begin to slice through the seals of the door. He would not have much time left when Iando would hear a noise coming towards him, only for him to see it was the other researcher. Iando would explain that the necromorphs are here as well, so they will have to be quiet. The two would slowly and carefully move through engineering, as if walking on eggshells, with the feeling of being watched, clawing away at their minds. However, after a little while, they would hear a loud bang that would alert the necromorphs to the advance of the Dalek presence moving through this area.
Seek, locate, annihilate. Seek, locate, annihilate.
The infectors would begin recombination immediately, creating new warriors to suppress the Daleks, while Iando looked around frantically for the resources of his salvation, when he would catch in his glimpse exactly what he needed. The two would get over to the crates, but a new problem would arise. How were they going to carry the crates back to the marker? As Iando was looking around for a loader to use, overhearing the Daleks' continued extermination rants with the crackling spray of their paralyzing weaponry. He then spotted a crawler. They would then maneuver around the battle carefully, carrying the crate, attempting to stealthily take it aboard the crawler and escape. Iando and the researcher would be successful in placing the crate aboard, but as the researcher was opening the bay doors, a Dalek would spot him.
Exterminate!
The last act of service had allowed Iando a window of opportunity to escape.
Humans are escaping! Stop them! Stop them! Exterminate!
Iando would drive the crawler away and towards the landing pad, close by to the marker chamber, where he would knock on the doors, asking to be let back inside, which after verifying who was outside, as for all they could know, it would be a trick by either of the opposing sides. Thanks. Right. Put us back on lockdown, and let's get to work, Iando would say. Unknown to Iando, a Dalek had spotted him as the doors closed after him. In the following hours, the researchers and Iando would feed the specifications and resources into the 3D printers and begin the procedure, with the device being near to being built. All the while they would hear the ominous sounds of men screaming in agony as they were either ripped apart by the necromorphs or gunned down by the preceding Daleks, when all of a sudden they would hear a cutting noise at the main doors, turning to see a ball of fire melting through the metal, seeing the Daleks coming for them, with the researchers beginning to shout at the printer to hurry up, and Iando trying to calm them and to get them to start building barricades to slow their approach, along with telling the others to find anything they can use as weapons against them, when suddenly they hear a notification noise coming from the printer announcing the completion of the present task. Iando would ask for some help as they all lifted the pedestal over towards the marker, making the final preparations with the crane loader so that they may fuse the two objects as one entity through unity, but not as unitology would have in mind. The procedure would nearly be over as the two Daleks had destroyed the door and breached the lockdown.
Exterminate!
The Daleks continued their assault, killing all who would stand before them and all others who cowered in fear of them, and as they made it to the marker, they would attack the last of the researchers, and as they fired upon Iando, a sudden electrical noise would fill the room that would slowly be followed by the marker, unleashing a shockwave of electromagnetic energy, followed by a loud noise, almost like a necromorph roaring out in terror.
Humans have been exterminated. Daleks are superior. What is happening? What is happening? Out of control. Out of control. Out of control. Out of control. Out. Are you well breathed? Daleks are the masters of Eve. Nothing can stop the
And so, the planet became as lifeless as it was before the colony's meddling. However, this is not where the story would end, as the general would dispatch his forces to the free planets to find the results, and they may just leave everything behind, or perhaps taking a Dalek with them to be stored and locked away, or perhaps to be studied for the secession wars by the Sovereign General.